April Pettyjohn, and this is Follow the Leader Homeschool Education. Hey everybody, welcome to Follow the Leader Homeschool Education. I'm so glad that you're here today. This is episode 8, and I'm talking with my awesome friend, Jill Bryant. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so honored.
So Jill and I have known each other actually since high school.
It's been a long time.
Back to Real Life Days. That was the name of our youth group at church. And then they took them in a different direction for a while, and then they came back home and they were in life group with us, and it's just been
the life group.
It's just been a fun journey of watching our lives.
That's a whole story in itself, how we landed there, but we won't go there.
You want to come back?
I mean, always. You're my favorite person to talk to, so yeah, I want to come back. You and Jesus are my two favorite people to talk to. So yes, I want to come back. Oh, and my husband.
Oh yeah,
he's great too.
But in that order.
Yes.
Jesus, me,
April,
Jeff. Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. We're gonna have so much fun today. I always ask my guests to bring a cup that's maybe just something funny or something important. So why don't you tell us about this beauty?
Okay, so this is Pinky. Yeah, she has a name, and I'm not a coffee drinker.
Right.
So as I've been watching and listening to the podcast, big fan.
Thanks, girl.
Big share, big supporter. I'm like, if I ever do the podcast, I don't drink coffee. So when you asked me, I was like, I'm bringing Pinky. And I love her because, one, it has this great sticker on it that says all of the panic and none of the disco.
Yes.
Which I feel is very suitable to me in my life. And also because there is another sticker on it that says, never forget how wildly capable you are. And this is kind of like my encouragement cup, if you will, my emotional support cup. Sometimes it has water in it. Sometimes it has Diet Coke. Sometimes it has
you gotta switch
whatever
out that
I'm feeling
clear
that
straw. When it's Diet Coke, you just gotta get like a solid color straw. So
That's
right.
right.
I'm so hydrated.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Such hydrated girly, the whole thing. But yeah, so I just love the stickers on it, and I just like to make things my own. I'm like a bright colored, like fun type thing. So
you bring joy and life to every room and every situation that you walk into. And as much as we love her,
she's mammoth. So we're gonna she's not the star. She's not the main character right now. So we're gonna put her down.
Oh, I love it. So thinking about like that's your style, you're bold and you're bright and you're vibrant. So how does that translate into homeschooling? Do you have like a mission statement or a Bible verse that kind of like guides your homeschooling?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to come up with like the real Pinterest answer. I'm like, okay, I need to have something really
you want it real.
Like Pinteresty and everything. But really, as simple as it is, it's really just, it's all going to be okay.
Yes. Oh.
Like, that's just like the constant reminder to myself of like, you know what, this is okay. It's going to be okay. And it took me a long time to learn in my homeschooling journey that it's going to look different than everything that I see around me. And sometimes things can look really great, like the whole Instagram reel. It can look really great. But behind closed doors, every homeschooling journey looks different. And so it took me a long time to just be like, you know what, this is okay. It's okay if my kid's a little bit behind. It's okay if, or whatever behind is. It's okay if they're excelling. It's okay if they're having a hard time today. Like, it's okay. And as long as, you know, Christ is at the center of it all.
That's right. Yeah.
And my family's taken care of. We're okay.
Being on a journey of over the past, 15 years of anxiety and depression, like in my own life, that has been a super key phrase. So I just love that you said that, because a lot of times I have to let myself play out that worst case scenario. Like people want to tell you like, no, just keep thinking positive. And it's like, no, sometimes I just have to let it play all the way to the end until I say the absolute worst thing that can happen is I die. And then I'm with Jesus. And then after I get to that place, I'm like, okay, I can move on now.
It can be okay.
Just have to let it play out. It is going to be okay. And there's so many good promises in scripture to keep us like grounded on that. I'm so glad that you brought up like the perfection of the Instagram reel and all that. I've had to be really careful starting this new podcast that I'm not just showing things in our homeschool journey that are perfect. Like my homeschool room is a mess a lot of times. It's like okay, we have to eat dinner, so move all your crap.
Yeah,
like,
but your mess is different than my mess.
It's
like
different.
You're saying mess, I'm like, I've seen your messy, April. It's not very messy. My messy is like, there's literally been an atomic bomb that's blown up everything.
Yes.
And then my ADHD is like, we're just going to leave it.
Yes.
And then it sits for a month. And then
you just need to knock on my door
okay.
on like a random Thursday morning.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It's not great. But that segues us so well into what I want to talk about with you today, which is mom comparison, mom pairing. And let's talk about, do you see that? How prevalent is it in the Christian community? Have you noticed it more with homeschool moms? Let's just jump in. Give me some of your thoughts.
Well, I think it's definitely very present. I think it is especially present in the homeschool community and women.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's also, sadly enough, prevalent in homeschool girls,
absolutely.
And just like, it's worse now because we see everybody's everything all the time. So, it's really easy to just like sit down and be like, oh, their this is better than mine, or their whatever.
Yeah. Having that access to social media. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. My take on it is I feel like it has gotten a little bit better in the past few years because like our generation, we're the ones that were growing up when Pinterest was just starting to be a thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, literally, I remember having Pinterest parties and moms would come over and we would all choose a craft and then we would make it together. Yes. And then, but yeah, I mean, planning a birthday party, it no more was just a cake from Walmart and some balloons.
Oh no.
Like that is not going to cut it. And so I just think it's been so detrimental to especially women around our age. I was going to say, feel
this like millennial type generation, like we definitely, I think, well, and like growing up in the 90s in the early 2000s, in our teen years, everything was, pretty perfect. Yeah. Everybody was like perfectly tiny and everybody, and it was just like, it was everywhere. Everything was comparison.
Yeah.
And I will agree with you. I do feel like social media has helped. There are some great influencers out there that are very honest.
Yes.
And it's very freeing.
It is.
It's really freeing when you're like, oh, okay, well, you have, I don't know, 20,000 followers, but yet you're like, look at my dumpster fire of a house right now. Like, it is kind of like, okay, it's okay for me to be who I am and be normal. There was a conversation a few years ago when my family thought we would be YouTubers. It didn't work out. But needless to say,
it totally could.
It totally, it was interesting. Anyway, my mom brought up something where she was saying that it's really interesting to her that our family, we were okay with like showing our dirty kitchen and like showing our messy living room. She was like, I never would have done that when I was your age. Yeah. Like it just would have been such a faux pas, to do that. Yes. And it's tricky for us because we grew up with wonderful parents, wonderful mamas, but that was what they were raised in.
They were the Martha Stewart moms.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. And so we kind of like picked up a little bit of that also, but then we also grew up in a little bit of the rebellious time where it was like, I don't want to make the cookies every day and I don't want to, but then
more liberated, feminist.
It's just
we
kind
have
of
this
like
weird mix in us.
Yeah. So it's kind of tricky because you have to give yourself grace. Yeah. Like, and having conversations with my mom and her being like, I put a lot on my plate. Yeah. I did a lot and I didn't have to do a lot, has kind of helped me be like, okay, for her to say that that's okay.
Yeah. They were overwhelmed in their own way.
Yes, with everything that they thought was expected of them. Yeah. And I think also we benefit from having like wonderful husbands.
For sure.
Who are like, I don't expect you to be perfect. Yeah. And I'm okay if our house is messy. We live here. Yeah. So anyway,
So is mom comparison something that you've struggled with personally?
Oh, yeah.
I tend to want to be more of that real person, but I have found repeatedly that when I put myself out there as that person, it's not always received well.
Yeah.
A lot of times it is met with criticism, unfortunately. I just think back to a time specifically when we had moved in pretty recently. So we moved in here in May, and then Demi was born in August. It was just like a wham bam.
I remember.
Well, and it was COVID. It was 2020.
Yeah.
So, you know, there were boxes everywhere still, and it was just kind of crazy. And a friend stopped over and she was like, I want to see the house. And I'm just like instantly panicked because I know.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it's not good. And I was like, okay. And so I'm like, this is the kitchen. I was like, I'm sorry. It's such a mess. And I just remember she goes, it is. And like, that was her response. And I was like, it
Yikes.
killed me.
Oh,
like
yeah.
in the moment, I was just absolutely crushed and mortified. And I kind of carried that with me, unfortunately, which is not healthy. I shouldn't have carried that with me, but I definitely stored it up. And then it made me kind of think twice, you know, before I decided, can I be vulnerable with this person? Can they see the real me, the messy me, the greasy hair me, and handle it? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I think that, like, for me, I never planned on being a homeschool mom. Mm-hmm. Like, that was never, like, even remotely on my radar.
I think we are like 5 for 5 guests who have said
it was never on my radar. It was definitely not on my husband's radar ever. And we were, when we started this journey with our oldest, who's now 16, we've been homeschooling this whole time. Yeah. Which is like still shocking to me to even think about, that we've been homeschooling a decade.
That's wild.
That's so weird. But we were pastors when we started this journey. Mm-hmm. So I was already dealing with like being like, you know, the perfect pastor's wife. And then when we started homeschooling, we were homeschooling in a small town. So there was either people who homeschooled for religious purposes, like very serious religious purposes, or people who like were kind of like, we just don't want to send our kids to school. Yeah. So, you know, you've got everyone running amok, or you've got everyone being, you know, very, very put together. Mm-hmm. And we were somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Like we didn't want to be rigid, obviously, on our schooling, but we didn't homeschool to separate our kids from the world or shelter them. We just wanted to be the first ones that they went to.
It was an intentionality.
It was like, this is, and it was a journey to get, you know, my husband on board, and that would be an interesting conversation for you to have with like dads of like, so tell me.
Oh, it's coming. Don't worry.
See, I set you up for that one. But everything was pretty okay until we moved to a larger city, and we got like kind of dropped into the middle of everyone's opinions of homeschooling, everyone's opinions on how your home, how you run your home. Yeah. And sometimes I think people just don't think before they speak.
Yes. So,
you know, I've had people say things to me like, oh, well, you're homeschooling your kids. Well, that means they're going to be weird. Or like, and the best thing ever is like, well, how are you going to socialize your children? Like, how are they going to know how to talk to people? And I'm like, well, I'm not locking them in a bomb shelter for the rest of their lives. Like, and like, I could not keep my kids from being social if I wanted to. Like, my kids it's just in their DNA. Yeah. Like, they're very sociable. They love people. Mm-hmm. So when we moved to a larger city, I started getting around more moms, started looking at the Pinterest thing, started looking up the YouTube videos, started looking up the stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have any idea what I'm doing. Right. Like, my kids aren't going to know anything. And I wasn't a very good student in high school, definitely not in college. And so there was also that pressure of like, am I going to fail them?
Yeah. It breeds this competitive nature.
Absolutely.
And competition is always the enemy of connection.
Yeah. Always. You say that again, please.
Competition is the enemy of connection. It will keep you from connecting with other people. When we're vulnerable, then that's what they're going to relate to.
Yep.
They might admire you or want to reshare something, you know, that you've put out there, but it's not necessarily going to make them feel connected and close to you and in community. And we learned that a lot, like through leading a life group. It's like people need to see our failures. They need to see our sin. They need to see those icky parts, because that's when I feel like that's when the chains that the enemy wants to bind us with, that's when they're broken, is when things are brought into the light.
100%.
As long as we can keep them kind of hidden and secret and dark, then he can use that and twist it for whatever his purposes are. And I really do think that there's a lot of that going on behind the scenes with this mom comparison thing that has always existed. But I think he loves it so much because he's the author of disunity.
Right.
He loves to breed that within the body.
Yeah. And it always seems to shine really bright. It's like those things. So a mutual friend of ours, who I still love and am close to today, and she's in our community group at our church. She was really helped set me free from this comparison thing, because I will never forget, like, being in a homeschool bookstore, and we had just started homeschooling, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at all the curriculum on the wall, and I had just like done all the research, and I'm looking at following all these influencers, and I'm in these different co-ops and these different things, and I'm like standing in the middle of this bookstore and I'm sobbing because I'm feeling so inadequate. Yeah. And I told our friend that, and I was just like, I feel like I have stepped into a world that I am not capable of doing. Yeah. And I'm looking at all of these other women, all these other things that they're doing. Their kids have graduated and they moved on, and they're at Harvard and they're going to Princeton. And I'm like, I don't even know if my kid's going to be able to read. Like, and I'm just thinking all these things in my head. And she's looking at me and she's like, your journey is going to look so different than everyone else's. Right. And that's okay.
And like, even their journey probably looks different than you think it looks.
Absolutely. And then she began to share some struggles, some failures, some things that they had been dealing with. And I was like, but you guys like have it all together. She's like, no, we definitely don't. And I remember after we joined CC, which we don't do CC anymore, but we did it for 3 years and we loved it. It was great for us. Educationally, it was great. And I went to a book study thing with all the moms. I don't know if you were there or not. I don't remember. But we're sitting in this room and I'm pregnant with King, our fourth, who is the ultimate surprise. So I'm like pregnant, hormonal, it's summer, I'm emotional, all the things. And it came my time to share about the book, and I just start sobbing because I'm just like, I don't know if I'm doing anything right. Yeah. And I felt inadequate in the room of women that I was in, but that was because I had done it to myself. It wasn't because they had made me feel inadequate. They hadn't said anything to me to make me feel less than. Right. But I had created it in my head of like, they're obviously against, they're not for me. Yeah. Because that's this constant dichotomy we have. And the enemy is so sneaky of like, he just breeds, like you said earlier, he just breeds this competition between us. And if we don't make ourselves aware of what's happening, the next thing we know, there's this gigantic rift that no one created but ourselves.
And if we can make each other the enemy,
right,
then our focus is off of the real enemy.
That's right. And we're not like looking at the actual roots of the problem. Yeah. So I'm in this room and I'm sobbing, and the next thing I know, someone next to me starts crying, and they're like, I feel the same way. Like and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, like we don't all feel perfect. We're not all perfect. And they thought I was, it was like, it's like that whole like, what is that Spider-Man thing where everybody's just like, they're all pointing at each other. That's what it felt like. Yeah. It was one of those things where it was like, oh, but wait, I thought you had it all together. Or I thought you had it all together. Yeah. And
it really just takes that one person being willing to put themselves out there in that place of saying, this is how I'm feeling and this is real. And it really does like break down so many walls. It does.
And whether it was my hormones or my pregnancy or whether it was the Lord, or I don't know what it was. Yeah. But once that like Jenga block had been pulled, it was kind of like everybody could just communicate how they were feeling and what they'd been kind of hiding. And I think we have to be really aware of how we speak to each other, and that we are each other's biggest cheerleaders.
For sure.
And once you realize, like, if I'm for them and they know I'm for them, then hopefully they will be for me too.
Absolutely.
And we'll kind of build this relationship and connection. I remember having a conversation when we were pastoring with another pastor, and we were discussing, we were staff pastors at a church, and I was really struggling connecting with our senior leadership. And I was just like, I don't know what it is. I think she hates me. I'm sure she hates me. She has to. And I had this really freeing conversation when this other pastor friend of mine looked in and was like, maybe she just has never been loved before, so she doesn't know how to receive love.
Wow.
Maybe she is pushing you away because it's a safety thing for her, and you loving her is uncomfortable for her because she's never experienced that. And
that shift of perspective.
I was like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about that.
Yes.
And so I'm like, well, what do I do with that? And she's like, you love even harder. You don't stop loving. You are consistent in your love for her. Like, you show up when you can, and you let her know that, like, you're not going anywhere. Right. And that conversation has shifted relationship in my life to be like, there's so much more. There's so much deeper than just what we see on the surface. We don't know people's past traumas. We don't know how they grew up. We don't know what they're dealing with. We don't know if they've experienced true love, if they've experienced the love of the Lord. We don't know. Like, we don't know. We don't know what they're walking through.
What are they compensating for? Yeah. And it's not always our job to know. We don't have to know all of those details to be Jesus to them.
That's it. It's like, you show grace regardless.
Right.
And I think when we shift our perspective, mom comparison starts to disappear.
Absolutely.
Because when you're just like, I'm not seeing you for all the things that you're doing or showing me on the internet, or how perfect your kids are, or how well dressed they are, or all these things. Because I think sometimes we can use our kids as weapons in that way of like, I feel insecure, so I'm going to present my kids as perfect images, when really they just want to be kids, and like, they want to have boogers in their nose and like dirt on their face, and, you know, like, they just want to be a kid. But we kind of box them in, and we're like, no, you have to look like this because it makes me feel better.
And you're representing me.
Yes. And that's hard. Yeah. And I think once we just realize that at the end of the day, we are just put on this planet to love each other. And we're here to encourage one another and cheer one another on. Yeah. And I think, like, about Jesus and the disciples, I am sure there were moments of like comparison and conflict.
Yes.
And I mean,
the brothers, they were like, which one of us do you love more? Who's going to sit on your right hand?
Yeah. Like, they're all constantly arguing about, you know, who's better, who's this, who's the more holy, who's the more. And Jesus, a lot of times, there are quite a few times my favorite Jesus, like, Jesus is a lot of things, but my favorite Jesus is when he just like holy slaps them all in the head, and he's just like a holy throat punch and puts them all in their place, and probably does it with a smile. And he just draws attention to what is actually happening, which is Satan is coming in and he's causing disunity.
Yes.
And he highlights it. And so that's what it is. I think if we wake up to the real enemy, what he's trying to do to us, we hold every thought captive.
Absolutely.
And we use that weapon of warfare, then mom comparison is not a thing. It doesn't hold power. It's important. Like, for me personally, I've had to be like, okay, is that really what's going on? Like, is that really, like, is that truth? And that's a constant question that's asked in our house all the time. I'm like, is that truth? Is that reality? Yeah. Is that just what you think you see? Is that something you've brought up in your head? Not dismissing how they're actually feeling.
Right.
But I think it's important that being
able to evaluate those thoughts.
Absolutely.
And name them for what they are. And I'm so glad that you brought up like the mental warfare, because that verse has been on my mind constantly as we've been talking about taking every thought captive. And in the last couple of years, it's been something that I've been talking to my kids about, because we've been talking about what is a captive and what does a captive look like? A captive isn't just like, okay, take me away.
Right.
A captive is fighting, they're kicking and screaming, and you have to hold them down. And that's literally what we're having to do with our mind, taking those thoughts captive. It's a war.
Yes.
It's a struggle. And
Yes.
we're struggling against that flesh and blood, you know, because there are powers at work that are greater than that. And as you've been mentioning like different scenarios, I'm like, I've gone through that. I've been there. I've been that mom. So I think as I've gotten older and started to mature a little bit more, one of the things that I've had to speak truth into my mind about is, am I really for that other person? Because on the outside, I can wear a smile and I can join the cheerleading squad and be like, I love you. But if I'm being honest, there are times on the inside when I'm like, I would have done that better. I would have done that different. And I have had to war against that thought until I can get to a point where I truly am saying, God has gifted you in that area and I'm here for it. I want to support you. I want to be a lift. I want to be a builder of you. I want to be an encourager. And getting to that point can be a struggle.
Absolutely.
But if I'm honest, there are times in my life when I'm not on her team and I'm not on her side. And I have got to get that under control for myself. That's on me.
Yeah.
And so just looking at, we can do our part in relationships.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're responsible for. However, I do feel like, unfortunately, there are women who grow older, but they never grow up. And they're 40 and they're 50 and they're still dealing with this and they're gossiping and they're backstabbing. And you have to be a discerning woman to where you can say, I'm going to give you grace. I'm going to support you. I'm going to encourage you, but you're not in this circle.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. Protection of your spirit, of your friendships. It's healthy, honestly. I mean, Jesus didn't let everybody into his closest circle. It was 12. And so in the same regard, we can do our part, be kind and loving and be an encouragement. And then if there's some people that aren't allowed into that closest circle, that's just wisdom.
Yeah. Protect your peace, I think, has been like the biggest thing for me. I'm not great at that. I'm a people pleaser to my core. I fight it all the time and just always saying yes.
Yes. I literally just said it.
I'm always saying yes. I'm always like, yes, what you are. And I love to cheerlead people.
Yes.
I love to see people. It's like, if you do any of the strengths, anything like that, whatever, it's developers, that strength. And I love to watch people succeed.
Yeah.
It like feeds me, but the enemy is really tricky because he'll come in and he'll flip that and he'll be like, well, they did better than you. And I have to be like, no, they didn't do better than me. They're gifted in that manner. Like they did it different and that's okay. And I, part of what I do is I'm a worship leader. That's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day, but there's so much competition there can be if it's not stewarded well. Competition and this back and forth. And there's been times where I've had to really sit back and do the same thing. Like, am I for that person?
Yes.
Where is my heart at? Like I'm everyone around me thinks that I'm like cheering them on, but secretly in my heart and in my head, I'm like, oh, could they just fail once? Like, I just want them to fail once. And that is a heart problem. Yes. That is, and it's easy for us as parents to like preach it at our kids all day, to be like, well, that's a hard issue. That's a hard issue. You need to take that up with the Lord. And then it's another thing where it's like, I'm having a hard issue. I need to and one thing that's really helped me, just to be practical when I have had, and I'm sure that it will sneak up again on me, is praying for them.
Yes.
And asking the Lord to change my heart for them. There have been times that I have had to speak out loud to myself things that I love about that person, or maybe not love, but I'm growing to love. Yeah. Things
even just things you recognize and acknowledge in them that are strengths.
Things that we work well together in. Yeah. Like I couldn't be as successful at this if I didn't have this other person's talent or trait to go with me. And just practically having to talk that out, because our words are weapons.
Yes.
And we have power of life and death in our tongue.
Right.
And when sometimes it's more than just thinking it. It's a lot when you can say, well, I need this person because they have this and this and this quality that benefits that helps me be a better person, not benefits me in like, I'm going to use them,
right,
but benefits me in the way of like, they help me rise up to a higher standard. And a lot of times it just kind of pours salt in the wound because we see something that we need to grow in.
Something we're lacking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so that's what it is. And it's just like,
such a good word. Oh, I don't want to end. This has been so good. Oh, thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, your realness. It's what I love most about you. So, but this segues really good into what we're going to talk about next. And you guys can come back next time and listen as Jill and I talk about bullying and how our families have faced that and overcome that in the homeschool setting. We'll see you then. This episode of Follow the Leader Homeschool Education is brought to you by Command Family Medicine. Command Family Medicine is part of a cutting-edge movement called Direct Primary Care. They deal directly with their patients to help individuals and families take command of their health through increased access and affordable and transparent cost of care. With locations in Springfield and Branson, Command is serving the Ozarks. It is also brought to you by Nathan Keene with Alpha Realty. Nathan is excited to help you find your perfect home. He'll make the real estate process fun, stress-free, and focused on your goals. Whether you're buying or selling, he will guide you every step of the way. He will work to make your dreams a reality. You can find links to Nathan Keene Realty and Command Family Medicine in the show notes.